Imagine the scene: a vast, storm-battered beach in Normandy. The air thick with the smell of salt and gunpowder. Waves crash against the shore as thousands of young soldiers disembark under heavy fire, their faces set with determination and nerves. They are Americans, fresh from distant shores, eager, confident, and carrying the weight of a nation that had only just entered this colossal conflict. They come with a sense of purpose, with the raw energy of a country that believed in victory and was willing to pour every resource into the fight. To the seasoned German soldiers entrenched in their defenses, these newcomers represented a new kind of enemy, one that seemed almost too optimistic, too relentless. They had heard stories of American industrial might, of their vast armies, and of their reputation for resilience. But nothing could fully prepare them for the reality. The sight of these young men fighting with a fierce, almost reckless abandon. The Germans watched as the Americans stormed beaches, crossed open fields, and faced their defenses with an unyielding spirit. There was a vigor, a confidence, that seemed to defy the exhaustion of years of war. And that confidence, combined with the sheer number of the American forces, sowed a seed of apprehension among the German ranks. It wasn't just the physical act of fighting, it was the aura, the palpable sense that these soldiers fought not just with weapons, but with a conviction that seemed to threaten the very foundation of the German war effort. As the fighting intensified, it became clear that the Americans brought more than just numbers. They brought a new way of war. Their equipment was newer, their tactics more aggressive, their logistics more efficient. They used firepower as an extension of their will. Imagine the sound of relentless artillery, shells bursting in coordinated patterns, the roar of tanks advancing in synchronized waves, infantry surging forward in disciplined chaos. The Germans, who had fought European armies that relied on calculated, methodical tactics, found themselves confronting a force that fought with reckless intensity, with a seemingly insatiable desire to push forward. The American soldiers fought with an energy that was infectious, an unyielding drive to succeed, even at the cost of heavy casualties. They pressed on when others might have faltered. They adapted on the fly, improvising, pushing through obstacles that seemed insurmountable. For the German soldiers watching these battles, this was a new kind of threat, one that combined material superiority with tactical daring. The Americans seemed to view every engagement as an opportunity to press their advantage, to seize victory from the jaws of defeat.
Their approach was disruptive. The Germans had trained for European-style warfare, slow, deliberate, precise. But the Americans fought like a force of nature, relentless, unpredictable, and unbreakable.
What struck German soldiers most was the psychological impact of the American presence. American troops were often portrayed in enemy propaganda as unstoppable, brutal, and driven by a cause that seemed almost divine. The images of American soldiers fighting fiercely, resolute in their purpose, began to take on a mythic quality. German propaganda painted them as a relentless force that would not stop, a new kind of enemy that embodied unstoppable momentum. In their minds, these soldiers did not just fight, they embodied a spirit of democracy, of freedom, of a nation willing to sacrifice everything for victory. To German soldiers, the American soldier symbolized a different kind of war, one driven by conviction and optimism, but also one that seemed to grow stronger with every setback. The American tactics, close quarters combat, rapid advances, and coordinated assaults added to this perception. They fought with a ferocity that German soldiers found both inspiring and terrifying. It was a kind of combat that shattered their expectations of European-style warfare, a style that valued slow, cautious progress. The American soldier became a symbol, an icon of resilience and relentless determination. This image fueled fears that they could not be defeated, that their willpower was as formidable as their weaponry. By late 1944, the Germans knew they faced an uphill battle. Their last major offensive in the West was a desperate gamble. The Battle of the Bulge was a surprise attack meant to split the Allied lines and turn the tide of the war. For the German soldiers involved, the attack was brutal. The Americans fought back fiercely, refusing to break even under heavy assault. They fought in winter's cold, in dense forests, with a stubbornness that impressed their enemies. Throughout the battle, the Germans observed something remarkable. American units, battered but unbowed, launched counterattacks, regrouped, and pressed their advantage. The resilience of these soldiers was a source of both admiration and anxiety. They saw firsthand that American troops could withstand the worst, adapt under pressure, and fight with a level of stubborn resolve that challenged their notions of victory. This reinforced the perception that the American soldier was not just a well-equipped enemy, but an indomitable one. It was a battle of morale, of who could endure longer, fight harder, and refuse to surrender. The Germans, who once believed victory was within reach, now feared that these American soldiers would fight to the bitter end, no matter the odds. As the war in Europe neared its conclusion, the American armies advanced relentlessly. The army seemed to push through defenses that had once seemed impregnable, their momentum unbroken. German soldiers, many of whom had fought in the trenches, in the mountains, and in the fields, looked on with a mixture of dread and respect. They saw that these young Americans, with their relentless drive, were a force that could not be contained. The American soldiers embodied something larger, an unstoppable wave of determination that threatened to sweep away everything in its path. The Germans understood that this was no ordinary enemy. It was a force fueled by hope, conviction, and an unyielding belief in victory. Their fear was rooted in the realization that the Americans were not just fighting a war, they were fighting a different kind of war, one that valued resilience, adaptability, and the refusal to surrender. The American soldier was perceived as a symbol of a new world order, one where the human spirit, unbowed and unbroken, could overcome even the most formidable obstacles. After the war, stories surfaced, stories of enemies who fought fiercely, with respect and awe for their opponents. Many German soldiers recognized that their American counterparts fought with a resolve that transcended the battlefield. The fear that once haunted German troops was rooted in the understanding that these Americans fought not just with weapons, but with an unbreakable spirit, one that inspired hope and, at times, terror. The American soldier became a symbol of resilience, an embodiment of the human capacity to endure, to adapt, and to fight on, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Their fear was a testament to the power of conviction, a reminder that in war, the human will can be as mighty as any weapon. In the end, the story of why the Germans feared the American soldier is a story about the human spirit. It is about the resilience that can turn the tide of history, about the unbreakable will to survive and succeed. The fear was not born solely from tactics or technology, but from an understanding that the American soldier represented a force driven by hope, conviction, and the relentless pursuit of victory. And in that fear, there was also respect, a recognition that in this brutal conflict, the most powerful weapon was often the human spirit itself. If you enjoyed this video and are still not subscribed, please consider it, as it really helps me out a lot. Thank you.